Alrighty, so I think we're just about to start. So I just want to say thank you so much to everyone for joining us today as we explore a day in the life of a translator. The Polaron team would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians throughout Australia and the continued connection to land, sea and the community. We pay respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. In particular, we'd like to acknowledge the clan of the Boon Wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, where our offices are located. I'd like to start with the agenda. We'll firstly introduce our panelists and hear from Nati and Polaron's founder before moving to our panel discussion and finishing off with a Q&A. Just on to the reminders. Just a reminder that this session is being recorded and you will be available to watch on demand at a later time. There is a live chat box where you can send through any questions or comments for the Q&A at the end of this webinar. On to the guest speakers. First off, I would like to introduce Lee Yakumis. Lee is the Strategic Engagement Manager at NAATI. Today, she will tell us briefly about NAATI's certification process. Welcome, Lee. All our panelists are connected to the translation industry. Some have been working as translators full-time for more than 20 years, whereas others are new graduates or work as translators part-time. Our industry is very diverse, and today's webinar is an opportunity to showcase it. I would now like to introduce Tristan Priolo. Apologies. Tristan has a master's degree in interpreting and translation studies, and she's one of Polaron's project managers. Welcome, Tristan. Next up, I would like to introduce Biljana Grovska. She's an accomplished translator, writer, and all-round team player. She also works for the Center for Cultural Diversity and Aging. Hello, Biljana. We also have Gabriella Lefebvre with us today. Gabriella is the Managing Director of GL Translations. She has been a part of Polaron's team for 20 years now and has been in the translations industry for over 30. Welcome, Gabriella. I also would like to give a warm welcome to Eva Hussein, the founder and director of Polaron. She's a practicing translator and interpreter and a NAATI examiner. Eva will moderate this webinar. I would now like to pass it on to you, Eva. Thank you all and enjoy. Eva, you are muted.
Okay. Thank you so much, Angela, and warm welcome to everyone. So look, one of the reasons why we wanted to do this webinar is because there's so much interest in what translators do. There's a few myths, miscommunication type of, thinking out there. So we thought, why not tell you what it's like to work as a translator? On the screen there, you see a little bit of information about our company. So we have been around since 2000. So this is our 22nd year, and actually November is our anniversary. So we are very much committed to producing messages that resonate with the community and are accurate. And at the end of every exchange, at the end of every translation, we remember that there's a real person and somebody that needs this information to be translated for them. So many of you that are watching, if you've been around, you know who we are. So I'll ask Emily to move on to the next slide, which is Lee. And Lee is kind of a last minute addition to the webinar, I have to tell you, but we couldn't pass up on the opportunity to hear from Nati about the certification. You know, many of you will know that it's no longer called accreditation, it's now called certification, but Lee will be able to tell us a bit more about what it's like to become a translator, what it's like to maintain your certification. Over to you, Lee.
Thanks, Eva, and thanks, Angelo. It's nice to be here. So I won't keep you for too long, but we thought it was worth talking briefly about what certification means and the different credentials that are available for translators if you're interested in going down that path. Next slide, please. So what is NAATI? So NAATI is the National Accreditation Authority for Translators and Interpreters in Australia. That means that we're the national standards and certifying authority for anyone who wants to become a translator or interpreter. We also certify interpreters in New Zealand now who work for the New Zealand government. So in practice, this means that we are upholding the standards that are expected of translators and interpreters in Australia through our certification system. You can go to the next slide, please. So to give you some context, in the last financial year, we issued over 740 credentials to people who became translators or interpreters, over the last year. And there's currently 10,900 practitioners, so that's translators and interpreters in Australia, holding over 15,000 credentials across 177 languages, which is quite a lot, but not all of the languages spoken in Australia. And for you guys, there are 37 languages available for certified translator testing at the moment. So for the next slide, please. There are, so we offer a range of different credentials under the certification system. We try to meet the changing needs of our multicultural community by offering different types of credentials for different purposes. There are currently 2 credentials available for translators. The major one is certified translator, which is the highest certification available for translators. Is generalist, which means that you don't need to have specialist translation skills in, say, the legal sector or health sector to become a certified translator. And being a certified translator means that you can work with complex but non-specialized content. Generally, certified translators are engaged for a range of assignments, including translation, revision, localization, and post-editing. But we aren't able to offer certification testing in all languages. So for any languages where we don't offer testing, which is generally in communities where there's low demand for certification testing, among other things, we offer a credential called Recognized Practicing Translator. So if you wanted to become certified by NAATI, there are a few things that you'd need to go through to get to that point. And there is a lot of information on our website. So I won't go through everything, but just to briefly cover it, everyone who holds a credential under the certification system has to go through formal training, either in interpreting or translation. So that's the first step, I guess, is to get some formal training. You also have to demonstrate your English proficiency, as well as ethical competency, which means understanding and being able to apply the AUSIT Code of Ethics or the ASLEA Code of Ethics, as well as having intercultural competency. So that's not only knowing the 2 languages, but being able to apply them in a culturally appropriate way. And then you would either sit a test with us to become a certified translator, or you'd be providing us with evidence of work practice, so that we sort of take that in lieu of a test when we aren't able to offer a test. We want to make sure that people have a bit of experience behind them before they get to this point. And once you've got a credential with NAATI, everyone has to recertify every 3 years. And that doesn't mean sitting another test. It just means that you're demonstrating to the community that you're upholding your professional development. So you're maintaining your skills, maintaining your language, and you're also working. So you're keeping up that practice and keeping it relevant and current. So you can go to the next slide if you like. That's all I wanted to say at this point, just to introduce the concept. But yeah, if you have got any other questions, just head to our website, which is naati.com.au, and there's a lot of information there we can share with you. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Lee. And you definitely win the prize for being very timely. So we really appreciate it. It is quite a complex system. So all the information that anybody ever needs is on NAATI's website. But at the end of this session, we'll also show you contact details of where to write an email if you're interested in pursuing this career. But now onto the meaty bit of our webinar, and it's the panel discussion. So you've already been introduced to the wonderful translators, and you would have noticed, of course, that all of them are women, which is interesting because most translators are actually women and interpreters. I think the last set of statistics I have had access to indicates that something like 70% of translators, interpreters are women. But guess what I get asked whenever I say to someone that I meet, at a networking event that I'm a translator, the first question people ask me is, "Oh, you're a translator. How many languages do you speak?" Well, it's by far the most annoying question everybody asks, and it gives you the measure of how little people actually understand what we do. I think that translators, and of course Lee and all of our panelists will shortly mention that to be a translator, it's of course not enough to speak two languages. There's so much more to it. But I believe that translators deliver essential services. The role of translators are always, often I should say, misunderstood or underestimated a little bit. So sometimes, we kind of feel a little bit invisible, unappreciated. I'll be keen to hear from the panelists about what they think about that. But having said all of that, most translators, myself included, love our jobs. I really love crafting words, presenting information in a way that my language recipients or, community understands, which is Polish. I also don't think that we're going to be replaced by machines or robots. So with that introduction, I will pose my first question to Tristan. How did you become a translator? What happened? Did you wake up one morning and thought, I want to be a translator?
Thanks, Eva. So I've always had languages in my life, languages including English and other than English. Growing up, I was just surrounded by multilingualism. So then I got to school and I decided to study languages. So I did a bit of Italian and Spanish and French. But I got to the end of my university degree, my undergraduate, and thought, I don't really know what I want to do. I just know I like communicating. I like communicating with people in different situations to me, not necessarily different cultures, but navigating communication. So then I applied for the Masters of Interpreting and Translation at Monash, because I thought, for me, it made the most sense, really. So with my background, my interest in languages, really, it all came from an interest. I found myself kind of mentally translating a lot of the time, and I thought, oh, what can I do with that? It's something I've already got, and many bilingual people already do have. So for me, it was just the most practical decision.
Amazing. And Tristan, what are your language pairs for those that don't know you?
So my strongest would be Italian and Spanish into English. French as well, with practice. I'm a bit out of practice at the moment, but yeah, those are my three.
Thank you. So now I'll go to Gabby, because Gabby's like the opposite side of the coin, I guess, if I can put it that way, because Gabby's been around as long as I have, so around 30 years. And Gabby, your language pairs are Spanish and English. How did you decide to become a translator?
Thank you. Well, it's an interesting question, and I would love to share it with you. As many of you know, I'm from Argentina, and I graduated as a translator in both languages many years ago. And today I can tell that my income comes 100% from the profession. So my story here, I was trained as a preschool teacher. But after a few years, I decided that I needed a change. So I accepted a new job as a personal assistant in the Argentine Animal Health Service. One day, someone asked me, "You speak English, right?" "Well, yes," I replied. "Okay, that's fine." Someone told me, "There is a Canadian veterinarian coming over for a business meeting and you must be there." "What are you going to talk about?" I asked with curiosity. "No technical aspects involved, just everyday things." "Okay, that's fine. I can handle this." So the meeting started and the non-technical issues started to appear. Foot and mouth disease, cows, farms, yearlings, slaughterhouses, different type of beef cuts. Everything was part of the non-technical stuff. So luckily the meeting wasn't too long. And I didn't cause a bad impression, because since then I became a translator and interpreter at the service. After this very first meeting, my tasks were translating different English and Spanish materials coming from different animal health services. It was very interesting. It was an interesting aspect of my job. And I started to study more and more about everything that was related to translation, as well as animal and plant health issues. And after doing this for a few months, I decided that it was time for me to move on and started translation as a professional career. And well, I enrolled at the university, started the course. And well, it wasn't an easy thing because I had to juggle my interpreting trips through Argentina and the university. But finally, I got my degree in translation, and the rewards for such an effort came later.
Yeah, and the rest is history, as they say. Biliana, how about yourself? How, because you've also been around for some time as a translator, but you kind of work part-time, am I right? How did you become a translator?
Yes, thank you so much, Eva. My story with languages began when I was little. I really love languages, and I studied English since grade 2 while I was living in Macedonia. And then I enrolled in university, and that was also with languages. So I studied German and English at the university in Skopje, which is in Macedonia. And then I had to cut short the studies because I had to come to Australia. And then a few years passed, and then I discovered that you can get NAATI accredited here, which was amazing. Lucky for me, I found a mentor. She was a Macedonian translator already, an interpreter, and I sort of got into translating a bit more, and I loved it. I think it's a wonderful profession. So yeah, that's how I began, and then I sought work through agencies and made it my part-time career.
Very interesting. So it sees that what unites us is passion for languages, but also an interest in crafting messages that communicate the message in the language for our communities. I will move on to the next question, which is, what does a typical day look like for you, Biliana? Because given that you work part-time and this is like an additional career, how often do you work? Could you go into a bit more detail about what actually happens in your day? And also, most importantly, does it start with coffee, your day?
Thanks, Eva. Unfortunately, I don't drink coffee. It usually starts with tea. So I'm a tea drinker. I love also smoothies and juices. So I'm trying to be healthy in a way. But every day can be different. When I first started, because at the same time I had my little one. So back then I was sort of part-time translator and a mom. So I was just doing translating, and I would have projects usually a few times a month, depending on which agency would, sometimes more, but depending on the agency's work as well. And then once I sort of got, more practice, I also started doing checking as well, checking other people's work. These days, I work at the Center for Cultural Diversity in Aging as a project administrator, and I do translating on the side, usually for SBS these days, and it's probably a few times a month, maybe like 2 or 3 times a month. It was a bit more often when it was during COVID, because there was a lot of material that needed to be translated due to the pandemic, and there was a lot of information out there, which is good for the community, because especially all the people, they need that extra help from us, which is great because we can convey that message, which is what the government wants to, to say through this crisis that we had. But yeah, you have to sort of juggle and maybe spend few late nights as well. Probably work on the weekends. That's what usually happened to me. Work on weekends with translating, and then work other jobs. Like I used to do bookkeeping. I used to do that 9 to 5, and then when I came home, I used to translate on weekends usually as well. So that's pretty much what happened.
So Biliana, it sounds like you are a woman of many talents. And I'll ask the same question now of Gabby, because to run your own business of translation and in a sustainable way takes a lot of courage and a lot of hard work. Is that right?
Yes, yes. But
Tell
let me
us
tell you
more.
this. Yes, it starts with my coffee. This is my me time before starting my day, and probably, yes, I will take and reply to urgent work-related emails, but yes, it starts with coffee. Then I get dressed, and why I'm saying this, because getting dressed for your working day is what sets out your brain and your attitude for the day. So I don't work in my pajamas. Then I head to my office and reply to more emails and start preparing myself for the day. Every day as a translator is different. And yes, in fact, you type and translate for most of the day. That's one aspect. And sometimes you are in front of the computer for 14 hours, but your jobs may come in different ways. So there are sometimes who clients call you and you are on the phone with them. Some jobs come from project managers or from automatic emails that you have to reply almost immediately, and that sets the day and the pace of your day. So let's say that I have a job and I have 3 hours to deliver, which happens. I take that one first, then I may have a job with the deadline in a few days and I deal with it later. So in general, I am very flexible, but organized, extremely organized and picky. And I work on the jobs according to the schedule. So then I stop for lunch or more coffee and continue working. And around 4 or 5, I would stop, go for a walk or bike ride or a swim, depending on the weather. But I try to do some sort of physical activity. Because after many hours in front of the computer, you really need to switch off for a while. Then I may come back to finish a project or to end the day with some admin work, or I can come back to organize the schedule for the following day. On top of you doing your work as a translator, also you will need to send the invoices, chasing clients, take care of your payments, the ATO. So some other days, as today, for instance, I have webinars and some sort of training. So I need to prepare for that.
Yeah.
More often than not, I reply to emails at night as well, because I know deadlines are important for our clients and including project managers. So if they know they have placed the job, it is one less thing they have to think about it. And in that way, you know what you need to do on the following day. And then it's time to finish your day and have a relaxing time.
And start all over again the next day, right?
Exactly.
Gabby, I have 2 questions. Do you ever work in collaboration with other translators for bigger projects? And also, how do you stay relevant? Because I think, having been around for a while as well, I know how fast changing and fast paced this industry is. So first question, do you collaborate? And second, how do you stay relevant?
Yes, I do have a team that work with me in big projects, because sometimes, and you know, Eva, this very well, it's like you can call and you say on the weekend, I need to have this done for Monday. And that's something, the weekend has so many hours. So you need to have a team that can work with you and be available. And how to stay relevant? Well, the business has changed a lot in the last 20 years. But I think it's the good relationship with agencies, mainly with people, project managers, and then probably try to learn about everything, because you do not translate and that's it. You need to know about computers, software, translation software, design software. So I think that that gives us a little bit of possibilities to work not only as a translator, but to capture different things.
Yeah.
And that's the way to stay relevant.
So speaking of project managers, let's now speak to our favorite project manager in the world. Over to you, Tristan. Before you answer the question and tell us what your busy day looks like, is being a translator in your job, in your current job, a blessing or a disadvantage?
Oh, it's an absolute advantage. So my day is probably quite similar to a typical translator's day in some ways, in that we deal with so many different aspects of translation every day. It's not just the words that we're dealing with. We communicate with clients, we send off quotes, we make sure that all that sort of accounts side is followed up. And then what will happen is we'll get a request from a client, and we'll help them figure out exactly usually what sort of translation is best for them or what sort of service. And that's another thing that as a translator you'll learn to do, because you'll come to really understand your audiences and what they need. And having a translation background in this role, it means that you can approach texts and situations from a different perspective. And then when we're sending off work to the freelancers who we send work to, like Gabby, for example, does a lot of our Spanish translations. When we send off this work, before we send it to them, we know what sort of issues they might encounter, and we can communicate this with the clients. But we don't just see texts come through, we do subtitles and voiceover and all sorts of projects. So every day is really, really different. And it, depending on the workload, you might spend almost a whole day working on some subtitles, and then another day you'll do 10 different things. So it's always different and really interesting.
And Tristan, your day starts with tea or coffee?
I'm a tea drinker. I drink a little bit of coffee. When I'm in the office, I like to treat myself, but at home, I'm very much a tea drinker.
Amazing. Emily, we'll get you to go to question 3. And Tristan, what's the favorite part of your job? Is it the button on your keyboard that says send or something else?
I probably have 2 favorite things. One is just learning about so many different topics. Not only the topics that we see come through for translation, but even just the languages that are requested. You really learn about the community that you live in as well by being a project coordinator, I find. So I've just learned a lot from the school system to fishing and health conditions, all sorts of things. So it's really interesting. But my other favorite part would be interaction with both clients and our vendors, so our translators. I find these relationships really valuable, and the more you can understand and listen to both of those parties, the more accurate your work can be, and the more it can fulfill its purpose.
That's what I said. Favorite project manager in the world, right? Okay. How about you, Biliana? What is the very favorite part of what you do as a translator?
You're muted, Biliana.
Sorry. There I am. I think being a translator means that you can help a wider community, means that you can help a lot of people by conveying an important message. That's what I found throughout the years, especially when translating for Centrelink or other projects that you have that needs to be widely spread to the community. I love that aspect of it. I love working with words. So words have a lot of meanings, and getting it right is important. So I love that aspect too. I love that we can work remotely from anywhere. So translation means that you can be flexible. You can be sitting at a cafe and translating. You can be sitting at home and translating. You can do it anytime. Obviously, being mindful that there is deadlines to these kind of jobs, but at the same time, it just gives you different knowledge of different industries, different aspects of topics that you can explore and learn about, so many different things. And that makes it more challenging, that makes it interesting, it makes it exciting. And to me, even opening a dictionary and looking at words, it gives me joy. So I think the variety of possibilities while being a translator, it's great.
Amazing. And how about you, Gabby?
Well, my favorite part, I would say that no one day is similar to the other one. And we have so many topics that we need to translate, research, read. So some of them are interesting, some of them they are not. But you need to be on the loop with many topics. What is going on in the world, maybe in politics, in the economy, even sports. So not only we need to do research on different topics, but a great thing, and that's something that I love, is that you are constantly learning about everything. I do agree with Tristan, what she said.
I so agree with you, and I think for me too, and I would like to hear feedback on that, is also hanging around with other translators, because the minute we get together, we talk shop, you know, often information that we translate may be confidential, but there is a way of talking about it, and I think having support of your colleagues is really immensely important. And also mentoring, you know, the future of the industry, the people that are the new blood. Gabby, have you had any opportunities to mentor younger people or people that are interested in joining the industry?
Yes, actually, yes, Eva, and it was a little bit thanks to you. Yes, I've done it in the past. Then I had the opportunity to teach at the university. I'm not doing a lot of mentoring right now, but perhaps because I'm focused on other things, and that's interesting as well. And it's good that you can pass on a little bit of your knowledge after being around for so many years. It's like your knowledge about things, and probably have a different input from younger people because they are trained in a different way as we were trained. So, yeah.
That's right, because it's a very fast-pacing space with technology, and you know, there's a lot of pressure on things like deadlines and you know, being kind of connected to systems that either clients or maybe language services providers have. So you need to be always learning, and not just about the topic at hand, but everything else that goes with it. And we already said at the beginning that you know, being a translator is not just speaking two languages, that's for sure. So look, we have a few minutes for questions, and I can see that there's lots of questions, so I was going to just address some of it. And Angela, if I could trouble you to read some of them out, those especially that are addressed to the panelists today.
Yeah, so the first question was submitted by Marina. Thank you, Marina. And it was, once you are certified to be a translator, how do you decide whether to be a freelancer or to join any service providers? Does anyone?
I might actually take that one, Angela. And I think it's a business decision. One of the things that nobody told me when I was starting is that in many contexts, unless you get an in-house job somewhere in a language that's in demand, everyone's expecting to run their own business. So, you know, that's a decision when you come out of university or when you get your NAATI certification that people don't know how to make sometimes. So I think, Marina, you know, like what I did 22 years ago is that I did a mix of both. The first thing I did, though, I have to tell everybody, is this is in the days of Yellow Pages, you know, the book. This is how, you know, how far back we go back. And I rang my competitors, you know, like under P for Polish. I rang everyone that was there and, you know, asked them, you know, I pretended to be a client. And I was actually a little bit or a lot disappointed with the quality of service I was getting. So in other words, I wasn't really getting any service. And because I came from the corporate sector prior to that, I thought, well, here's my opportunity. So I began with translating of documents, you know, birth certificates, and I also did a lot of interpreting. And with interpreting initially, most of it was for other language service providers. So, but it's a question that would be really good to talk to a mentor about, because it's a decision that depends on your language pairs, on your lifestyle, on all kinds of things. So Marina, I don't know if I answered your question, but feel free to reach out to me if you want to have a discussion about, specifics. But I think it's an individual decision for everyone, and maybe others would want to contribute to this. Maybe Gabby?
Yes, actually, my experience is a little bit different because I was a translator and interpreter at the government department in Argentina. So when I moved to Australia, I must tell you that I thought I'd never be able to work as a translator again. Well, luckily time proved me wrong. And probably because I started, Nati was a very good source of clients coming in, and then meeting the right people at the right time, I think. And then it's like one thing leads you to another one, and then when you don't know, you are just in the business. But I do think that freelance was my option, because at that time I was new in the country. I had my children and they were very little, and I need to be with them. I needed to be with them. So for me, that flexibility was really good. And yes, they are not babies anymore, but having that flexibility is really great.
Yeah, amazing, because you can even work during school hours and all of that.
Yes.
Anybody else wants to contribute to that question? Otherwise, we'll move on, Angela.
Yeah, sure thing. So we'll move on to the next question. So this one was submitted by Iman, and his question was, could a certified translator translate a book?
Translate a book? Goodness, I will step in again, because what I can tell you, and maybe others can confirm that, is that professional translators that are certified rarely translate books. I've only ever done one in my entire career. So often translation of books go to people that are not translators. They may be a writer in a second language or something like that. What's your experience, Biliana or Gabby or Tristan? Anything you wanted to add to that? But the answer is yes, but no, but yes, but no.
I think you're right, Eva. Sorry, I was just, I personally haven't translated a book, but I think you're right. I think it's a mix of being in that field of writing and knowing that, but in saying that overseas, it sort of interlaps. So I have a friend who worked in a publishing house overseas, but she actually finished university to be a translator. So she does translation of books. So I think maybe here it's a bit different to how overseas looks at it, but definitely, the certified translators are mostly engaged by government or other agencies with. Yeah.
But they certainly can. Gabby, have you ever done translation of a book?
Yes, actually, because my background is literary, scientific, and technical translation. When I came to Australia, I met a family who had a book, and they wanted their children to read the book that the father wrote. And that was, I would say, my first job here in Australia. And that gave me the opportunity also to speak about it at one of the OSIT conferences many years ago.
Yeah, 2004 or something, ages ago.
Yes, 2004. And since then, yes, it's not something that I do very often, but I enjoy doing it. So yeah, but that's probably because of my background in Argentina. I don't know if it's because I'm certified here.
Yeah, and translating books is really hard work, and actually it doesn't pay that well. So
exactly.
if you're thinking of making that your career, it's usually per book. You wouldn't be able to get paid by word and stuff like that. Yeah, thanks, Gabby.
Yes.
Angela, do we have a question for Tristan?
For Tristan, I
If
don't.
not, I have one. Hold on.
Go for it.
Tristan, what are the 3 favorite things that a project manager has about, when working with translators?
Probably when we've got translators who really communicate the decisions to us. If we've got something that's a bit more complex, and obviously we don't know all of the languages that we're translating into, it's really good to get specific feedback from the translators, because then we know that they've given thought to what they're doing, and we really build that trust with them. So that's something I really love in communicating with translators. 3 things.
Yeah.
I kind of like all of it.
Punctuality.
Yeah, punctuality is very important. And communication. So when we send a job offer, if you know that it might be pushing it for time, or if you've got something on and it'll be a day late, it's so important for us to know that before people accept a job or before people decide to change their rate. We do tend to send all the info, all of the info right at the beginning, so that there is that chance before a translator accepts a job for them to negotiate with us. And if there is room for negotiation, we will. There isn't always, it just depends on the job. But yeah, I think people shouldn't be scared to talk about money and to ask for more when they think it's warranted, and to ask for more time, because if we can give that, we absolutely will, but we need to be able to have the conversation first. So communication is very important.
Thanks, Tristan. And also I would add to that mix friendliness. Now that everyone's met Tristan, you know that she's a human being, and often she works under immense pressure on multiple projects, lots of languages. Like, on some projects we might have 150 people working behind the scenes. So we have translators, second translators that are checking, community leaders that are triple checking everything. So I think be nice to Tristan is my top tip. Yeah. Good.
Most people are. Most of you are lovely.
Yeah. Of course. And they much loved as well. Angela, I think we might have time for one more question.
We actually got 2 more questions, if we could just quickly run through them. So we'll go with Daniela's first, and I think Lee, you might be able to help us with this one. So the question is, how can someone get NAATI certification in a language where there are no courses available for training in Australia, and they don't have overseas training in translations and interpreting?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I know that the training aspect is often a challenge for people. But yeah, I do know that RMIT in Victoria offer non-language specific options for their graduate certificate, graduate diploma, and their master's programs. But there's also an option to do what's called a skill set course. It's like a 40-hour course, like introductory course into translation or interpreting. And we've got a list of the different academic institutions on our website who offer that. And they're non-language specific as well. So there are options. You just have to keep looking around, and we try to provide that information where we can on our website too to help people.
Wonderful. And we'll go to the last questions from Aurora. Any of the panelists can answer this one, or Eva or Lee. How important is getting insurance, professional indemnity? Can any of the panelists recommend ways of obtaining insurance?
Maybe I'll take that one. I think, look, around translation, there's actually a lot of risk. And the other thing I'll say is that you're only as good as your last translation. And, your translation can be 99.9% accurate, and it's just that one word that may get you in trouble or get somebody else in trouble. Because, if you think about it, translations aren't produced to put it up in a frame on somebody's walls. They used to do something to, they need to be fit for purpose. So when it comes to insurance, I think it is important to have it. I don't know who we insured with, but as a company, we had like massive insurance bill, and I think we insured for up to $5 million. And that covers everybody that works for us. So I think maybe speaking to Ozit might be a good idea. I think they may be able to refer you to someone. And, there are insurance brokers. It's just a matter of finding, some research or doing some research. And I highly recommend, because it then helps you manage the risk of getting something wrong. And on that note, guess what? 45 minutes has gone just like that. I had an amazing time, and seeing some of the names of people that have joined has made me feel really emotional, I have to tell you, because these are the colleagues that I met, more than 20 years ago. And it's so good to see everyone, still passionate about the industry. I wanted to thank Lee for joining us at a short notice and showing us how certification works in 4 minutes or less, or whatever we told her to do. Also to Tristan, to Biliana, to Gabby, to Angela and Emily, who's done, managed this behind the scenes. And what I really want to leave you with is the hope that we have inspired some of the people that, we had more than 150 people registered. So there's obviously an appetite and interest in this industry. So what I would love for people to take away from this is the inspiration and the hard work of everyone that's in this industry. And on that note, thank you again. Our contact details are on the screen. We do have Angela. I think I'm taking over from you. This is your beat. Go for it.
No, that's okay. Yeah, if you do have any translation inquiries, please contact our head of sales, Carla, at carla.f@polaron.com.au. Otherwise follow our social media on Facebook, LinkedIn at Polaron Language Services, and our YouTube channel, Polaron, for more. We encourage you to check out these channels as we regularly post interesting content there. Otherwise, we do have Nati's email address, info@naati.com.au as well. Please contact them for all Nati related inquiries. Thank you once again for this webinar, for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, and we are going to be running other webinars, by the way, just very quickly, about the day in the life of an interpreter, of a project manager, bilingual worker. So these are coming. Keep your eyes peeled on future sessions. And thank you so much, everybody, for attending and engaging in this very interesting webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Mona. Yes, certificate of attendance. We'll take care of that. Don't worry.
Bye-bye.